Well, the government guidelines are clear that state departments should only replace vehicles after 5 years or 120,000 kilometers. Yet, Sunday Times reported yesterday that the KZN Education MEC and ANC Youth League chairperson Kwazi Mshengu had wasted hundreds of thousands of rands in taxpayers' money on car hire. This apparently because he didn't want to drive his predecessor's Mercedes-Benz. For his response, we now cross over to the MEC who's joining us from our Durban studios. Good evening, MEC, and welcome to The Full View.
Good evening, and good evening to the viewers, and thanks for having us.
MEC, is it true indeed that you don't want to drive a vehicle that was driven by your predecessor?
It is not true. It is just a blatant lie and basically a figment of imagination. When I got assigned to this department, I was told that the car that has been used by the former MEC is not roadworthy, and if I continue to use it, I'm risking fatalities. And the officials in the department then committed to deal with the Mercedes-Benz dealership so that the car is sorted out. And in the course of that, I offered to use my private car, which again I was advised that it was going to cost the department higher than the hired car. And then the only option that we're left with was to use a hired car. So to say that I don't want to use the car on the basis that it was used by the former MEC is just not true and a figment of imagination.
Okay, so this report, because according to the ministerial handbook, there must be a vehicle which experiences serious mechanical problems and is in poor condition, in which in that event a detailed mechanical report by the vehicle manufacturer or an approved dealer is required. Did your department get that?
Well, what I was told was that there is an interaction between the department as well as the dealership to assess the car and determine whether it can still be used or it should be written off. And that is the process which I must admit has actually taken too long to finalize by the department. I've been pushing to say let's finalize this issue, and there has been that back and forth interaction between the department and the dealership. I, as an MEC, have not received any correspondence from the dealership. I have not communicated with any one of them because those are matters that I don't deal with. There are officials responsible in the department. I relied on their advice when they said the car is not roadworthy. Allow us to deal with it together with the dealership. And there was no way I could have suspected that either they were lying or they were just setting me up for failure. I then had to rely on their advice because using an unworthy road car will basically risk fatalities, and that was not what I was willing to do. And when I offered to use my own car, I was advised that it's going to cost a department more than a hired car. And unfortunately, we were left with that option because at the end of the day, I had to continue to do work as an MEC and to travel across the length and breadth of our province. During the day, we had to make some calculations with the HOD to say how much exactly would have costed the department to use a private car. And in the month of September, where I traveled above 8,000 kilometers, the calculations came that it was going to cost the car 153,000. That department would have basically had to. If I would have used my private car, the department would have paid me 153,000, which is quite higher compared to the hired car.
So since this report came out, and I'm sure that the Sunday Times contacted your office even before they published the story, since then, have you been able to ascertain whether the document that you received, or whether the document that the department is supposed to have to show that there are mechanical failures, that is an authentic document? Because the reports are that it was a doctored document.
Well, I've instructed the HOD to investigate that matter, and he is now dealing directly with the dealership. And he advised me later today that he's expecting the final report on the status of the car tomorrow, but also on the issue of the alleged forged letter, as it were. And we are clear that if indeed it is true that there is a forged letter which was used in the department, we need to take consequences, because I, for one, I will not be working with the fraudsters. But I also want to make a point that I'm one MEC who's against excessive spending. And I want to believe, and I mean, it has been my agenda in the department that every cent must go to the classroom and to the school. I've even forsaken some of the benefits that accrue to all the MECs and the ministers. That include security upgrades, that include gardening services, that include domestic workers. I said I can manage and do those things on my own because I want each and every cent of the department to be spent to where it matters most.
Okay, so how many months have you been driving or been driven around in this hired car, at what cost as well?
I can't say at what cost exactly because I did not get the total figure, but I've been using the car since I was appointed on the 28th of May this year.
So that's about 7 months, right? Close to 7 months.
It's about 7 months, we're correct.
I don't understand, MEC, why you're saying that you don't have an amount, because earlier on this morning when you're on a different news channel, you said that the amount that was spent was 90,000 Rand a month for the car. So how come you don't know the figure now?
No, I'm saying I don't know the total figure.
Or you don't know the total figure?
Which would have spent from, yes, the total figure. But I'm told that we have not been spending more than 90,000 a month on the hard car. And it has been varying from month to month. In October, as a way of example, I undertook a holiday and the car was sent back to where we hired it. And the amount that we paid in October was far less than 90,000. Yeah. So that's why what I'm saying is that I don't have the total figure.
Okay.
But the 90,000 is what I was advised that it cost if we use the department for the whole 31 days.
But then why should we just accept that the MEC who says that he wants to make sure that there's not excessive spending in his department has been driven around in a hired car for 7 months, and within those 7 months there's no finality? Even right now you don't even have the document to say that indeed the report that's needed according to the ministerial handbook has been authenticated thus far.
Well, I'm not arguing that it should just be a matter to be simply accepted.
Did you fail on your part then, MEC? Would you agree that you failed on your part?
No, I wouldn't agree that I failed on my part because that's why I'm even writing to the public protector to say I request your office to investigate all the allegations.
But it's 7 months later, MEC.
Yes, it's 7 months later, but that doesn't amount to a failure on my part. And I think once the public protector, which I'm writing to before the end of the week, undertakes her task, I will indeed be vindicated of all the allegations that have been leveled by the Sunday Times.
Okay, the thing about it is that the ministerial handbook may allow you to do this, may allow you to hire a rented car, which it does, but that does not make it right that there's so much money that's being spent on a rented car on a month-to-month basis. And as you've said as well, that you would prefer that that money be redirected to the classrooms. And 7 months later, nothing has happened. You don't even have a report.
That's why that I indicated earlier on that it's also disturbing that the process by the department has really been very slow. But we had to make choices or to elect one option out of three. One, to use a car which I was advised by the officials in the department that it is not roadworthy, which could not be done. Secondly was to use my own private car, which I voluntarily offered as per the ministerial handbook, and I was advised that that will cost the department higher than a hired car. So the only option which we were left with was to use a hired car and try obviously to stay within the cost instead of using my private car. Having said that, I know that 90,000 a month is huge compared, I mean, in the light of the conditions that particularly we face in the education sector. But we had to do some kind, we had to execute duties as an MEC because I could not have used Uber or other means of transport to travel around the province.
Okay,
but I understand that
it's fine. Unfortunately, MEC, we're running out of time. I just need a quick comment from you with regards to the stabbing of a grade 9 pupil at Durban Secondary School.
It's one of those disturbing incidences where we continue to experience violence in our school. A grade 8 learner was killed by another grade 9 learner. is quite disturbing, and we continue to intensify safety in our schools. We also call on the community to partner with us in ensuring that our schools are really a place of development and not a place where dangerous weapons will be brought in as well as drugs. So if we don't win this battle in our communities, we'll find it hard to win it within the school premises. But we'll continue to strengthen the security in our schools, ensure that there are proper perimeters so that there is clear point of exit and entry, and continue with the random searches to our learners.
Do you know what weapon was used?
I'm told that it was a knife that was used to stab the deceased.
Okay, thank you so much. The MEC of Education in KwaZulu-Natal, Kwazi Mshengu.